So, hey everyone, welcome to this episode of the Transection podcast, and this is what we're going to call our Sexcast.
This is actually the topic that started us talking about doing a podcast, is because we were trading dick stories.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, you know what? This would make a good podcast. So I'm really excited about this. I've been waiting for it for a whole, 8 episodes now. So again, you can find us on Facebook at the Transection Podcast, on Instagram at the Transection Podcast, and on Twitter at TransectionP. You can also find us on the web at www.nixharrisfield.com/transection. So if you have any questions or concerns, you can get a hold of us on any of our platforms. We also do have a submission form on the website.
I was thinking that we could just ask each other those sort of stupid questions that people ask, like how do trans people have sex, and we can say funny things
the same way as everybody else.
better. Well, no,
it's better. Everybody orgasms.
yeah. Do you know what? Someone said to me, what's the key difference between queer sex and straight sex? I said, in queer sex, everyone comes.
Yeah.
They were like, oh, shit. And I was like, yeah. And sometimes more than once, just for fun.
Because you can.
Yeah, it's not a one for me, one for you. Now we're finished.
You're finished when you can't feel anything anymore.
You finish when you think one more time and I won't be able to get up to walk anywhere.
That's probably the best sex I've ever had. Is I got up out of it after and immediately fell over. I was like, my legs. What happened to my legs?
Sea legs.
Does I get amputated?
Just face plant the bedroom floor. How was that for you?
I can't feel my legs.
I think the two best things that ever happened. No, in fact, there's a few. There was once when. So the very first time I had really, really good sex was when I was 19. And I slept with this guy, and we were in a band together.
Ew, why would you do that?
The band came after us. And it was so good that I involuntarily cried. And it was in the dark though, so I was like, oh my god, I'm getting away with it. And then he turned the light on to take care of the after, and he was like, you crying? I was like, no. No, I'm fine.
This is what it looks like.
Yeah. He's like, why are you crying? I don't know. It's just happened. It's just come out of nowhere. He's like, are you upset though? And I'm like, no, it was very good actually. And he was like, oh. And he was like, all pleased with himself. He's like, do you want a tissue? I was like, yes, please. For my face and my fanny. In that order.
Why would you? Why are we friends?
This is meant to be a serious endeavour, Jonathan. You and I are in far too much. Was that because you had an orgasm and then you couldn't get your words out? Or was that just like a normal?
First of all, that buzzing sound is my mini fridge.
Welcome. If you joined us for our last, so we're banking a couple of episodes. So actually, technically, the last episode was all about energy and coaching and aliens. There's some aliens in there. if you're intrigued, you should be. Go back, listen to it. And also episode 7 was with Jordan and I, and we were talking about religious experiences. It's pretty fucking heavy, wasn't it, George? But
Yeah.
I just wanted to acknowledge that for both of us, that was quite a very deep and somewhat taxing conversation, but it was important and it needed to happen. So that was very good.
I don't regret it.
This episode, no.
I don't regret it, but the recovery from that was awful. That was me in my bed for like 4 days straight, but we did it. We did it. We talked about it. It was hard and it needed to happen. So
it did. How do you feel now?
Oh, better. It feels good. I talked about a lot of things I've never talked about before, especially in regards to my trauma. And so it was really good to get it out and actually like speak about it. So
good. I'm really glad. I'm really glad to hear that. Sorry, I've got a lot of hay fever today, and I'm like,
sure.
I'll try and keep it under wraps. Yeah, I'm glad. I think sometimes it's catharsis, isn't it, to like put it out in the world. And Brené Brown, she always says, you know, that shining light on things, you know, it takes away the shame and lots of other things. So sharing is like important. And I mean, normal people would just do it one-on-one. We've done it on a podcast for anyone to listen to, maybe a little bit extreme.
Yeah, and it was really good. The big thing for me after that really helped me feel good about the fact that I had done that is, I mean, it hasn't even, well, it just dropped in relation to where we are now, but even after we recorded it and before it dropped, I had a conversation with my cousin. So it hadn't even released yet, and I hadn't even talked about these things yet, and she was telling me about how even before this, my experiences were relatable to her and that it helped her come a little bit more to terms with her leaving the church. And that hit me like a wall. I had no idea. I was like, you what? and so just having that conversation, I was like, I'm really excited for her to listen to it, just because she was there for a lot of what I was going through. And up until now, until the conversations we just had, she didn't know how deep it had gone with me. And I had no idea how deep it had gone with her. And so having these conversations, hopefully these can get to people that need to hear them now, especially in religions like the ones I was raised in.
But because of all of those conversations that we've had, this time we're going to talk about sex. And obviously, it's not all funny. Sex is great. And for some people, it's very important. For some people, it's not so much. But ultimately, if you're going to have sex and you're into it, it should be fun. You know, it should be adding to your life. And yeah, that's why we want to talk about it. So enjoy.
So here's the good question. How do you have sex as a trans person?
Better.
Everybody comes.
Yeah.
Usually, unless you get, you know, my one experience. Which
that's the goal, isn't it?
Yeah, which I was actually talking about him yesterday, which is hilarious. So, it's been next Wednesday, July something or the other, but it'll be 1 year since I've had sex. And the reason is because I'm so mortified by these experiences I had that I just don't want to bother. After I had come out, I joined Grindr. Awful. But anyways, I joined Grindr. And about 2 months into that, I'm sitting at this local pizza place called Lucky Slice, which is delicious. Pizza's the size of your face, like slices the size of your face. But I'm sitting there and I'm just scrolling through Grindr because I'm down in like the metro area of town. Everybody's always going, all the bars are down there and stuff. So I'm like, it's going to be a good hotspot for me to find, you know, somebody I don't know. And I sign in and I see this guy and I'm like, I know this guy. The last time we had a Halloween where it fell on daylight saving, so we had an extra hour of partying. I went over to a friend's and got pretty plastered. And I don't know who he was supposed to be, but in my brain, he looked like the Battabook. And I ended up having sex with the Battabook. A pile of dirty laundry in my friend's basement. Like, on Halloween. Anyway, and that was before I had come out. And so this is after, probably like a year and a half later, and I see this guy on Grindr, and I'm like, that dick was fantastic. And he obviously knew me before, and he's on Grindr, so I'm like, oh, he's bi. I can totally get in with this. I'll feel okay with it. So then I started this year-long sordid affair with this guy. And every single time the sex was so disappointing, I wanted to be done. But I kept thinking about that time I banged the bad book. I'm like, I need that back. And so every time I'd go back thinking, it's like, maybe I could get it. Maybe I can get it. And I'm very much like meh about sex, but this was obviously during my first year of transition. I was horny all of the time, 24/7, ready to go, humping the air all of the time. And so I was like, okay, I'll go with something familiar. And I was like, every time I'd go over and it'd just be
underwhelming.
There would be like points where I'm like, oh yes, this is like good, this is good. And then he'd be like, okay, like, you were just hitting the right spot so good, and you did 2 strokes and then laid over. Like, come on, give me something. And I am very much a power bottom, very much enjoy being on the bottom, love the bottom. Top is not of any interest to me whatsoever. And the last time I had sex with this guy, I was so desperate for an orgasm. So immensely desperate that I topped. And I did a great job. And as soon as I finished, he fell asleep. Like, I got up and I got all of my stuff and I left. I haven't talked to him since, and I'm just like, the things I did for that man. So ever since then, I'm just like, you know what? I've got batteries, and Adam and Eve ships directly to my house. I'm good. But I've gotten to the point now where I had a great deal of growth in a very short amount of time. So I'm not used to things touching me, like my pants rubbing against me and stuff. So now I'm back to the constantly horny.
What do you do?
Well, it's to the point where you're like, it's the 5th time you've jacked off for the day. It's 3:00 in the morning. You've woken up out of a dead sleep because you were so horny, and you're crying. With the vibrator in one hand, and you're just like wiping away tears with the other. Like, I just want it to stop. And so I became active on Grindr again on a couple of days.
You're like, I need help. This is more than a one-person job.
Every time I open it, I can feel my insides dying a little bit more. Like, it's always so bad. And especially in the area I live in, there's so many, I call them headless. So it's either just a torso. So there's torsos, which they just have a picture of their torso, and it's usually about 20 years old. Or they have no profile picture at all. It's just a head. So I call them headless, even though it says the head or whatever. And so if it's headless, it's a married Mormon man who is gay. And so that's not going to be relationship material. That's not going to be, and I'm like, that's not an open relationship. I'm not going to touch that, And then you get the torsos, which is usually like 50 to 60-year-old men. And it's a picture from like 92. So they just have the torsos. So there's this torso that about 8-9 months ago, I went on a huge campaign trying to figure out who he was. So I was a regular at this bar called the Harp and Hound. And it's in historic downtown. So it's these buildings that are 100 years old, and it's in the ground floor. And then they also own a bar in the basement. And then there's like offices above them. And so he has an office above him. I found that out later. But so there was this guy that was a torso, black shirt, kind of thinner. And I'm like, and it says he's like 44. So I'm like, I guess that's kind of in my range. I can get with it. And I said he was always 8 to 12 feet away. So I went on like a 4-month campaign trying to figure out who this torso was, because he wouldn't tell me. And I'd message him every, so you're gonna tell me who you are? Yeah, just nah, just wouldn't respond, anything like that. And I'm like, do you want to get laid or no? Like, I'm here for this. And so I just was trying to figure out who it was, and like looking at body types and just like who was in that age range, and I couldn't figure it out. And finally one day I showed it to one of the servers, and she's like, oh, I think it's this guy. And I'm like, it's not that guy. It's totally, that guy's like 60 and not that shaped. And she was like, I swear it is. And so then I ended up meeting another gay guy a couple weeks later. And I was telling him about it. He's like, I'll figure it out. And so he started messaging Torso. And it was the guy. And so then I messaged him. I'm like, hey, what's up? You know, saying his name and stuff. And so ever since then, like whenever he sees me, he's always like, oh, hey, how you doing? How have you been? And it's so funny because now I know who he is. So since then, I've watched him come in with all of his Grindr dates, and I just watch him from across the bar like, I know what you're doing. Yeah. But I'm also, you know, proud of him because he does stay safe and gets tested and is on Truvada. But at the same time, every time I'm just like, here's his Torso who is totally catfishing all of these students. So they all come in and they'll go down to the bar and have a couple of drinks, and then he'll take them upstairs to his office. And about, you know, half an hour later, they'll come down and he'll come back and have another beer, and the other guy leaves. And I'm just like, how do you do this? Like, teach me your skill. But
well,
yes,
I mean, good for him. If
I'm super proud
point
of him,
in life he's still scoring, then yeah, good for him.
And there's been a couple of times where he's come in because, you know, because I've been struggling with my addiction for a long time. But so like last summer, especially right after my mom died, I was there. I'd be there from 11 a.m. on Saturday until close at 2 a.m. And so I'd watch him come in multiple times throughout the door. And I'm over here like, how? And then I figured out the trick. You have to talk to people.
Yes, that helps, I've heard. Yes.
Yeah, I forever alone.
It's funny. Do you know what I grew up going to a single sex secondary school. Try and say that fast 20 times. And then
yeah, I didn't do it once.
And then I went to my local college for a year after that, during which time I was in a relationship with a guy who was very controlling and jealous. And then I went to uni, but not for very long. Ended up working with lots of women. Then ended up working in a hair salon. And then, yeah, so basically, like, for a very long time, all the people that I socialized with were mostly women. Or if they were male friends, they were either gay or quite introverted. And I hadn't spent a lot of time around men at all until I went traveling. And then I lived in a hostel I was surrounded by men. When I got there, Jordan, it was literally within the first few days, it was very hot. It was summer in Perth in Australia. And there were all these young French men. They just sit there in their shorts. Like, that's it. And I did not know where to look. I was, I didn't know where to look. All these guys, and they were just talking to me. And I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
And there was this one guy, and he was just like, and he would see me cooking, and I like to make like turmeric rices, or like yellow and like golden, like fluffy rice and stuff like that. And sometimes I cook it with like cloves or sultanas or something. And he was like, oh, you need to teach me how to make rice. And I was like, yeah. I was like, okay. And they would, and outside was so we didn't have like, so outside we have lots of like these really old sofas, and then like a cover, like a canopy type thing, and it was held up with all these steel beams, and these like it was just loads of these really like very took themselves very seriously, like young, attractive, like French men who were very like, they didn't talk in English very much, or to English speaking people very much. You know, they were very like exclusive and stuff. Mm-hmm. But you know,
they
you
were
sometimes
very French.
I mean, yes, you could say that. But you know, I'm that's fine. And they would do all like their chin ups on the bars that were holding up the canopy and stuff like that. And I was just for the first couple of weeks, I said to my mate, I was like, how do you handle this? Like, what do you do? And they speak to me, and I was just like, no, I can't even remember what my name is or where I'm from. And I'm just like, yeah. But I mean, yeah, it was a bit of baptism of fire. But anyway, but in the long run, so I left there for a little bit to go work in a kitchen in the outback. That was great. But the rest of the time, I ended up making some amazing male friends. As many of them I'm still in contact with now, all this time later. And I have to say, it's changed my dating game so much. Like my two main friends outside of school when I was a kid were boys, and then we got to that age, and suddenly they were interested. And I mean, from what you described with your experiences with testosterone, it's quite an interesting time. So I yeah. So all of that kind of got in the way of those friendships, and then they kind of went down the toilet and were never the same after. So, and you know, I've discussed this before, but I had some sort of childhood trauma associated with an older man when I was just 9 years old. So don't worry, we're not getting into that now. But all I was saying was that over time, you know, I've just not had a lot of like men in my life. And my dating game and how I feel about men and how confident I feel about men has changed dramatically since spending all that time in a hostel. And I had some of the best sex of my life last week. I mean, last week? No, not last week. I wish it was last week.
What? You didn't tell me about this?
No.
I thought you were my friend.
Last year. No, don't worry, John. I haven't left you out. I was just delirious then in that moment. Obviously, was starting to lose my ability to communicate effectively. No, last year was some of the best sex of my life. And I felt very empowered, and I felt very it was just brilliant. It was brilliant. And it's interesting actually, because although I'm demisexual, which for those of you who don't understand what that means, I don't fancy anybody physically ever, except for the few occasions when I make a connection with somebody, and then suddenly I'm like, oh, I think I want to do the thing with them, rub some bellies. So yeah, and I'm like, oh, I have the feeling, and it's very rare. So but yeah, despite that, I had some great times last year. And it's funny, I think, because like day to day I don't put out much sexual energy because I don't really
You don't put out much.
Hey listen but interestingly, a lot of my previous relationships, I would end up with people who weren't that interested in sex. So by the time I had the feeling and I was like, yay, now I want to do the thing with this person on a long-term basis, and they'd be like, yeah, I'm good, we did it last month. And I'd be like, oh,
I did it last month.
I had one girlfriend, right, and she was like, the way that she talked about women, and I mean, she identified as a lesbian, and I didn't know about my gender identity then. But she would make comments about women, very misogynistic, very objectifying all the time. But when it actually came down to it, she wasn't particularly interested. About once every 2 weeks, she would let me. So, and unfortunately, that wasn't like a rare thing for me. So last year, to have met 3 people that I had a good time with, all 3 of them, and it was like a very good balance, and everybody was interested, and there was like no pressure and things like that. It really changed my relationship with sex and masculinity and all of these other things. And I think similarly to you, Jordan, I struggled for quite a long time, because I was like, well, I'm often attracted to masculinity, which I often find in men in my day-to-day life. But how are masculine people and men attracted to me? You know, I don't fit this idea of like femininity. They're never going to find me like in a skirt or behaving in a feminine way, or you know, I don't fit that Disney dynamic that we've been brought up with. So I was like, how do they see me? And you know, I've met plenty of men, and particularly cis men, who are attracted to me, but when they find out that I'm non-binary, I'm like, oh, it's a cock block.
Yeah, and that's because we talked about this the other day. I had a little bit of a little minor meltdown over this, but that was the guy I talked about earlier, was one of the big reasons why I've struggled to find connections or to go out and actually put myself out there or talk to people is because we had multiple conversations where I told him I was not comfortable with the languages he was using to describe me while we were being intimate. And it's like, for me, with what I've been through with my sexual trauma and the shame I received from my religion and all this stuff like that, it's hard for me to open up to someone. It takes a lot for me to get, like, I'll look at someone and be like, you know, I want to smash, but I don't like intense feelings of wanting to do it. So when I get to that point where I'm like, I actually want to have sex with this particular person and not just I want to have sex, it was really hard for me to go in and then get misgendered and to have feminine descriptions of me while we were being intimate and stuff like that. Because I'm just like, no, I'm uncomfortable. But because of what I've been through, I have a hard time withdrawing consent, but I want to get up and leave. And so I just kind of kept dealing with that, going back and forth. And then there was one incident where he got really drunk and his friend got really drunk and it went out to the parking lot. And I was trying to calm him down and he yelled my dead name in public. So it was just kind of really hard. And so I've now dealt with, I had this guy I was totally disrespecting myself with for a year that had proven to me that no matter how many times somebody says to me that they respect me or that they'll change their language or their behavior or anything like that, they don't. And so now I have this complex. Yeah. I've got this complex that the second they see my naked body or they find out that I'm transgender, they'll code switch and they'll see me as a woman and they'll see me in feminine ways, and I'm not going to be respected as a man anymore, because although I'm non-binary, I'm very comfortable with the masculinity side of myself. And so I'm terrified, and it's like I'm terrified of going out and finding like gay men, because that's kind of my demographic I go for, because I'm not what they want. And I'm starting to put feelings and words and emotions inside of other people I haven't even met because of my experience. Mm. And so I haven't wanted to put that on anybody. So I really, despite, you know, wanting to sleep with someone, I haven't in a year now, because I have all of these things running around in my head. And I just, like, I don't want to push my trauma and insecurities on someone else, because I also, there was one time in, what was it, December and January? I did meet someone. I met him on Facebook dating. And it says I'm always right out the gate when it comes to stuff like that. I do mention that I am transmasculine, just because I don't want to have to deal with that. I'm getting out the door. They can make the decision whether or not they respond or they message me, you know, that type of deal. And then that kind of takes care of a little bit of my complex, because I'm like, oh, they know, so they're messaging me. It's fine. And so I met this guy, and he seemed really cool, and he was really sweet and nice. And the more we talked and the more we hung out, he met my friends, and the more he seemed kind of like the bitchy kind of gay, like the cis white gay. And I started to get a little uncomfortable. And then one day, and he knew I was non-binary, and we had conversations about that before. And then one day he shared this thing, and he was like, I'm sorry if this offends you, but it's the truth. And I said, there's only 2 genders. I'm like, well, and that was just another like notch in the complex of men will say what they want to get in your pants, but they're not actually going to follow up on it. It's not, you know, they don't actively educate, anything like that. And so I'm like, okay, that's 2 for 2. So I'm just like kind of retreating into my little bubble. And then I started talking to someone else, and then he ghosted me. And I'm like, it's frustrating. And there's a couple of studies have gone around, and on average, I think it's like between 14 and 17% of all people interviewed said they would date a trans person. So now I've got that stuck in my head. Like, you know, I feel so much like an object when it comes to this stuff. It's like once you once you come out as transgender, you cease becoming a human to people. You are no longer their friend. You're this object or this thing or whatever, and it's just you become undateable. People will say you become unfuckable, but you don't. There are a lot of people out there with trans fetishes, and it's I know I
not
could go out
even
there.
fetishes.
Just,
not even fetishes. Sometimes they're just fine with it. They just don't want anyone else to know, or they don't.
Exactly, you don't want other people to know. They're okay with fucking you, but they don't want people to know that they're attracted to you, and so that's like the hard thing with me is now I also do that with people, like when I look in and I'm like, oh no, they'll be happy to fuck me, but they're never going to introduce me to their parents. And yeah, so it's like this huge issue with trying to find a date. And especially in my area, there's not a lot of other trans people, especially where I am attracted to masculinity. And so it's kind of rough because it's like I know I could find people. I can find people in the community I could date and stuff like that, but you've got so many complexes that you have to deal with. And I beat one and then ended up with another.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I relate a lot to what you have said so far. But I find I have I mean, I know this is like one of the most frustrating things to say, but I have found that by throwing myself into a massive social situation, I mean, I'm not suggesting that you go to Australia to do this, but by going to Australia, going to like I was completely anonymous. Suddenly, nobody knew who I was. I remember actually, I was cutting somebody's hair outside, and I had my hair and makeup design business for like years. And someone had said, had seen me cutting hair and said, "Oh, do you actually know how to cut hair then?" And I was like, "Oh, do they not know?" You know, my ego was like, "Do they not know who I am?" And then I thought, "Of course they don't fucking know who you are, you idiot." And so, and then I was like, "Oh, I'm anonymous now. I'm anonymous now." And I was able to start from scratch. It was such an interesting experience to like have no um, history with anybody there. Nobody had any preconceived ideas about you. You were totally who you were to them in that one moment, or from the last week that they've ever known that you existed.
Mm-hmm.
And to be in that was really interesting because it's not so much you get to rewrite yourself, I think, but you're more reflected back as the present you by your new friends, and you don't have all of that weight of like who you used to be hanging over you. And you know, and it's much I found it in a way much more authentic. And you know, the men that I did come across who were interested were literally, they didn't know that much about me. There was no I mean, or they knew a bit. They might have known me for a month, but you know, um a lot of these men, it was just very organic. Like, we're attracted to each other. I mean, I didn't sleep with all of them, just a few. But it was such an interesting thing, and I've never been in that kind of environment before where sex wasn't in the air. Don't get me wrong, it's not like you woke up for breakfast and saw people shagging next to the Cocoa Pops or something. It was just the butter wasn't assaulted. It was but it was just that it was just it was just so just
Not the
easy.
butter.
No, everything was fine. Everything. I mean, I say that confidently now, but now I'm thinking about it. Now I'm not. I couldn't. I wouldn't put money on it now. Now that I think. Anyway, we're getting off topic now. Let's just assume that everything is fine. We're all here. It's all good. So, but yeah, just to be in that, and I kind of, in a way, Jordan, want that for you. I almost want you to have like this, like out of your home experience where you, not even for very long, but just to be somewhere else where people just take you exactly as you are right now. There's no history, you don't have to explain yourself. I never explained myself. The whole time I was there, I let people make assumptions because I was too tired to correct like 50 people that I met every single day. But for the most part, it was just so liberating. And you know, I meet a lot of people in our community, and I think it'd be so nice to kind of shove everybody, like, you know, go off for a bit, be anonymous, be in a big group of people, and you'll realize suddenly that so much of the things we're hung up about it's justified that we're hung up about them, but actually that's only one small part of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are guys that, you know, would meet you and just be like, yeah, fuck it, let's go now. And but I think when, especially with like online dating, I don't like it. I deleted my apps recently, and I was just like, fuck it, I'd rather be chucked in like a massive social situation over a period of time where you know, like in the hostel, where you make friends with people, you start chatting, you get vibes, and it's sort of everybody at once. It's just a massive like mosh pit of dicks.
That is the most amazing sentence I have heard in a very long time, and I am here for it, and I want this.
Good.
Mosh pit of dicks.
Yeah. Just don't break it. I actually have accidentally broke somebody's penis once because they had an erection. I sat on their lap and I didn't know, and they were just like, I was like, "You okay?" And they were like, "Yeah." And I found out later that he broke it. I felt really guilty. I was like, "Oh no!" And they were like, "Oh, you know, it wasn't your fault. Like you didn't know." And I was like, "I mean, we were at, like, it was a daytime and we were in a house. Like it was, people were around." I was like,
Fractions happen for no reason at any time.
Sure. Well, I mean, I was only a teenager. I didn't know that. I was like,
yeah.
Oh, nobody explained that to me, and I was just like, la la la, you know, sat on his lap, and he just had this face, and I was like, "Are you okay?" He's like, "Yeah." But yeah. To anyone that I've ever injured, I'm sorry. Never intentional. So yeah. But yeah, I would love that for you, Jordan. I would love for you to like just be in a big, like, lovely situation and to like have a totally different experience. I think that would really boost you, and you'd realize that people love talking to you. And you know, like a lot of my friends, I've said this before, a lot of my friends have messaged me like, is Jordan single? It's like, yeah, Jordan's single. I think it'd be all good.
Find him in the discount section. He's a little broken.
Oh no, you're well loved.
Yeah,
if
no,
you
I
were
actually, obviously it wasn't on the scale that you had, but like when I went to Boston last year, I went to go to a Harry Potter convention, and fuck J.K. Rowling. But anyways, so I went and I was meeting a lot of people that I had previously met. Like they came to my roommate's wedding when we had it. It was actually Harry Potter themed, and I wore these awesome like green robes, and I was the officiant. It was awesome. But so anyway, so I'm there in Boston, and there's all of these people that don't know who I am. I was only ever me. What is that sound? But so I was able to be authentically me more than I ever have been. And it was nice because, you know, I could walk around Boston. People didn't know who I was. And that was fun. And I was planning on doing something similar. I was planning on a 4-week stint that I was going to do, where I was going to fly from here to Florida, spend some time there, and then make my way up the coast, hit New York and see friends, hit Boston, go to Chicago, and then hit Washington, and then come all the way down, finish in Disneyland, and then come back before I started my new job. But then the pandemic hit, so I didn't get to go on that, and I was looking at that as my emotional journey, my metamorphosis that I needed, and I didn't get to go on it.
Oh, your time will come. It will happen.
Yeah. So especially with this new job I'm interviewing for next week, it's significantly more money doing the same thing, just in a different sector of the construction business. And I know I'm going to be able to do this shortly, just not now. And that's when I started going to the Harp and Hound. It was actually after I'd come out. And I became a regular there because they were the first ones to use my name and my pronouns. despite my ID and my debit card saying otherwise. So that's become my home, but there, I loved it so much just because I'm so much of an introverted person until you get to know me. I'm an ambivert, but I could just sit there and have my drink and just watch everybody else. And to them, I was nobody but who I was in that moment. And so I've made friends since then that have only ever known me as Jordan. Well, they knew me as Alec, but still. So they've only ever known this version of me. And they're so supportive and fun and great, especially when it comes to me struggling to find love and romance. And so it's all just my mental blocks at this time. And the last 3 months of me being unemployed, I've been able to discover way more about myself, and I've become more comfortable with myself. And I'm really feeling good. Like, I feel like I'm gonna start putting myself out there and see if I can hunt down some dick.
Hells yeah. It will happen eventually.
I don't care if it's real. I don't care if it's made out of silicone. I'm getting that dick.
What do you call a lesbian with huge fingers?
What?
Well hung.
Go to your room.
I'm in my room.
Go to your other room.
What now?
It took me way too long to figure out this joke the other day that I saw on my Facebook. Way too long than I want to admit. And it was like getting ready for a date before, and then they were like shaving their legs or something like that. And then it was like getting ready for a date now, and they were clipping their fingernails. And I'm like, I don't get it. And then I went, oh, lesbians.
I saw a joke somewhere that said, it's getting serious with your crush when she starts clipping her nails short.
That's I have a couple of lesbian couple friends, and it's funny because, like, despite never talking about it, I totally know which one's the top and which one's the bottom, because the bottom has acrylic now. And they're stilettos, so they're pointy. So I'm like, she definitely is not a top. That is a pillow princess. Like, I see you.
You say that right, but acrylic nails are very blunt, and they're more blunt than natural nails.
Well, they were stilettos though, so they're pointy. Yeah,
I guess.
And I've had those before, and I know exactly how those feel. I actually miss them. I miss having acrylics, but I can't work in construction and have acrylics.
Would you?
I did before, but I just don't want to deal with the harassment from the customers. Give a take. I'll paint them, but I won't do acrylics.
Yeah, it's funny. I've come back to certain things. Like, for a while, I got rid of all my sort of anything remotely feminine because I needed to start from scratch again.
Yeah.
And I came back to the nails. I even painted my toenails for a bit. I was like, no, I don't like it. And it's one of the few things. So yeah. So Jordan, what is your dream sexual encounter? What's that like? Is it somebody you know? Is it somebody?
Okay.
Are we thinking celebrities? Who's your favorite celebrities? If you had a list, like three to five.
I don't know, because it's one of those things that it's just like I'll look at them and be like, oh, they're hot, and bang them, but then it's like, who would I actually want to bang? I'm sorry, but Jason Momoa. Break me in half. Yeah. Ian Somerhalder? Is that how you say his last name? I'd smash him.
What's he from?
He's in a lot. I just know that he's hot. Vampire Diaries, maybe? I don't know.
Okay.
But he's kind of got like the, I don't know, like the smoky blue eyes. Idris Elba. Mm.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and also, I just lost her name.
What does she look like?
It's the actress from Jessica Jones.
I think, yes, I know exactly who you mean, but I can't remember
also want
name.
her to split me in half.
So graphic. Oh, grim.
there's this dildo at the local adult shop here. It's called like the Great American or something like that. It's this huge thing, and I want her to step on me and use that on me.
Jordan, are you talking about the Great American Challenge?
Yes. You know what that is?
Only in name, I would add. Only, I mean, if you've got one, I mean, kudos, if yeah, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Fifth, have you got one more celebrity?
Sure. Who's the actress that plays Leslie Knope?
I have no idea.
I thought her name was Leslie Knope for like the longest time, but her. I want like sweet sex with her.
Okay, like wholesome, like crying, like rom-com sex.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't mean crying.
I would worship her.
That's nice. That's nice. So my first ever like full-on screen crush that was like next level is the actress. Well, it's really the character. I mean, the actress doesn't look like the character, but it's Vasquez, who's in Aliens as the female in the Marines. Did you ever see that movie? Aliens, the second one.
Oh no.
Yeah, so she's really hot. She's really buff. She's got an amazing figure, and she like is in an army, like a Marines outfit, and like, you know, they're fighting like a monster, so she's like sweaty and dirty a lot.
Oh.
Yeah, she's yeah, the first time I saw her, I think I was maybe about 14 or 15 when I first watched that, and I saw her and she came on screen. I could just feel myself like getting closer and closer towards the TV, like, what's this then?
What's this? Oh, by the way, her name's Amy Poehler.
Amy Poehler, yeah,
yes.
She's a legend. Yeah,
yes.
I love her. Amy Poehler's cool. Yeah, so there was that character. It's Vasquez from Aliens. She's hot. And I mean, when my friend said the other day, she's like, why have you deleted your dating apps? I was like, well, Tom Hiddleston's not on there, so what's the point?
Yeah, that is another one. And
no, you've had 5. No, he's mine. Okay, in this fictional world where these things could actually
can I have
happen.
Benedict Cumberwaffle then?
Bendy Dip Cucumber Patch. Yes, you can. Yes.
But I only want him in. He needs to come in dressed as Doctor Strange, and then wear only the cape.
I knew you were going to say Doctor Strange.
Yeah, but then he has to keep the cape on. Everything else can come out, but the cape has to stay on.
Right.
I'm not weird, I promise.
So into the cape. It's because the cape is sentient. Because the cape is sentient. Is it a threesome? Is that part of the attraction for you?
Well, he can use his hands for other things while the cape smacks my ass. Like.
Oh, I expected nothing less from you. So yeah, Marines lady, Vasquez, Tom Hiddleston. I really like Henry Cavill, but but I'm very much on the husband, a hunt for a husband. Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be a husband, but you know, that vibe. And I just think Tom Hiddleston would make a better husband than Henry Cavill. I mean, this is all very relevant. I've thought about it just to be sure before I make any big decisions. And then I have two classics, okay? And I don't care that they are older because I have loved them since I was old enough to understand movies. And that is Bruce Willis and Harrison Ford.
You know
Harrison Ford is old enough to be my grandfather, and I would make him a sandwich.
You know Bruce's name is Bruce Willis, right?
Yeah.
That's how much I
what,
love
your
Bruce.
cat?
My cat, yeah.
Oh!
I named my cat after Bruce Willis.
I thought you were saying, you know, Bruce Willis's name is Bruce Willis. As
no.
If, and
Bruce,
I was
my
like,
cat with the bow tie. It's because he was too fat to be Bruce Wayne.
Oh.
Listen, no, I love Bruce Willis. You know, in fact, I would probably die hard for him.
Oh, that's clever, Jordan. I see what you did there.
I'll show myself out.
Very on the. It's very on the ball. If it was earlier in the day for me, I might have been able to be witty. But I mean, I don't think it's going to happen.
It's okay. Not everybody loves all the good Christmas movies like Die Hard.
Yeah, exactly. Die Hard is a Christmas movie, and it's the only one that I want to watch every year. Ho,
okay,
ho,
so
ho.
you got 4? 5. No, that was 5. Yeah, that was 5. Yeah, I agree with Harrison Ford, though. I saw a picture of... Did I send it to you? Who was it? Old Western star. I can't remember his name.
I'm not a big Western fan, but the only one I'm going to tell you is Clint Eastwood.
I think it might have been Clint Eastwood. But Clint Eastwood.
Clitoris Eastwood, man.
That's gonna be my drag name. I love it. Anyways,
yeah.
For some reason, I just wanted him, and there was another one, but I'd only ever seen them like older in the old Western movies. And so somebody posted a picture of him when he was like 20, 21.
Have you seen his son?
Yeah.
First time I saw a picture of him, I was like, "Oh, who are you? What's your name?"
I don't feel like it was Clint Eastwood, but hang on, I'm pretty sure I sent it to Kelton. Hang on. Scroll back up through our conversations here.
It was like that for me with Michael Caine. I saw Michael Caine when he was young. Michael Caine.
I think I've seen him when he was young. Yeah.
When he was young, I was like, I mean, I think he's handsome for an older. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I saw Michael Caine in in the Italian Job, the original one, and that when he was younger. And I think he's a handsome gentleman now, like an older gentleman, you know. But I saw him when he was young, and I was like, wow, he's very pretty. And I think it's the curly hair as well. I quite like a bit of curly hair. But yeah,
it's usually really soft, and you can like pull it, like scratch and then pull, and scratch and then pull. I'm over here being all like sweet and sensual, and you're like.
For those who can't see the video, I did a motion where like I'm holding hair and I'm like pushing it down towards my crotch. That's very naughty, children. Don't do that. In fact, children, I don't mean to, oh my god, I'm digging a hole now.
Harass.
I meant that addressing adults. Obviously, if you're underage, we don't do that. It's that's an adult only activity, peeps. I was saying children addressing other adults just as a joke. Just that I'm not okay. Let's move on. Let's move on. Panicking now.
That came out a little wrong, didn't it?
Sorry, it's a saying, like my sister, or like she'll tell me and my brother off. I mean, we're all adults, and I'll shove him and he'll shove me back, and she'll go, "Play nicely, children." So that's where it comes from. Obviously, I'm addressing other adults, and that's what she says. But when you don't know that in joke, you sound like a paedophile. So that wasn't what I was going for, and I apologise. We can cut this bit out.
Seek you help.
Help me!
This whole section, just get rid of it.
Jesus Christ. Oh dear.
So what is the funniest sex story you have?
Oh wow. The funniest. I think, well, one of them, I mean, I've probably got a lot here. But the first one that was ever really, really funny was that nobody had told me about what we call in England fanny farts.
Queef.
A queef, when you get air trapped in your vagina.
This is hilarious because the one I'm thinking of also involves that.
Well, I was 16. I didn't know it was a thing. I didn't know it could happen. And I was mid sex with my then boyfriend, and I was on all fours, and
Oh, fun.
got some air in there. Didn't know. I was like, oh, that feels a bit funny. Went to move, and it was just so loud. So loud. I was crying. I had tears running down my face. I was laughing so much, and he was like, "Can we move on?" I was like, "You're gonna have to give me a minute. This is the fucking funniest thing that's ever happened." I was like, I didn't even know that could happen. Nobody warned me. I was crying. I was giggling, and like I was. I mean, eventually we got back to it, but I was so distracted. I was like, "That is hilarious." And I was in my head. I was like, "These are all the people I'm going to tell. I'm going to ask them. Did you know this could happen?" So I mean, he finished. He did what he had to do, but I wasn't into it at that point. I was like, "This is like the most amazing discovery for me," and I already
you
think
like
farts are
grab
funny.
your phone to text everybody, and you're still got your leg up in the air.
What does this text say? Oh, I don't know. I was trying. I was mid-shag when I tried to say that. Never mind. Yeah, that was pretty funny. What about you? Tell me about your queef, Jordan.
So this was already after I'd been married. So obviously I've had tons of sex at this point and had a kid. We've been married. We've been together for 5 years, and I'm off exploring the realm of other dicks. And, oh man, this guy was perfection. It was still to this day the most beautiful dick, real or not, I have ever seen. I'm in love with this dick. Hate the guy, love the dick. But so we meet up, and we have a couple of mutual friends. So of course I'm like texting all around, hey, you know this guy? They're like, oh yeah, he's a really nice guy, and he's got a cute dog. And I'm like, cute dog, I'm in. So we meet, we have dinner, we go over to his place. He's like, yeah, let's watch a movie. And I'm like, so we go upstairs, and he pulls that thing out, and I'm like, oh my god. The first was terror, then it was awe, and then it was thirsty. And it was great. Like it was usually bigger dicks are way more uncomfortable, and I usually kind of prefer like regular size. Like, you know, bigger is fun and all, but you get to a certain point and it's just not fun anymore. But I guess he either knew that he was needed to be a little bit different with the way he stood. I don't know what it was, but we straight up had porn sex. It was amazing. And so he's going, and he's bigger, and he's making some pretty big humping motions. So he's back in that area. And so he kind of at one point kind of like flips me over, and this is obviously before I came out. So I'm like this 140-pound tiny little thing, and he just throws me across the bed, and it's like, it was like the loudest thing ever. And I mean, and like young younger me would have been absolutely mortified and hysterical, and he would have had to console me. But at this point, I've come to realize that sex is usually funnier than people think it is, and I am just hysterically laughing, and he's laughing, and it took us a couple of minutes to get back to it, but it was like I was being rocket propelled by my vagina. He ended up being not a good guy, but I still have dreams about that dick sometimes. But
yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Yeah, I have to say, I agree. Like, normally when I've been with someone who's been a bit bigger, especially if they're aware of it, because not everybody is, but for those who are aware of it, it's like they thought that all they had to do was bring a big dick to the party and that's their job done.
No, you gotta know how to use it. Yeah.
I've been like, yeah, I mean, it's like buying an army tank and you don't even have a driver's license.
I like that. Yeah, but this. Do you think it would be weird if I just sent him one of those Clone-A-Dick things? Be like, can you just mold your dick for me? Minus the herpes, please.
Minus the herpes.
Yeah, that's. We had a conversations because I'm immunocompromised, and so usually when I'm getting to be with someone, I bring up like, hey, I have zero judgment. There's ways to control it. I just want to make sure that we wear condoms, that I protect myself, that we get tested and stuff. So just let me know if you have anything, because I just want to be careful. This isn't going to be a no from me. I just need to know. And he was like, oh yeah, no, that's like, it's messed up that people don't tell people and all this stuff like that. And he said he was clean. And then I went to Cleveland and came back from Cleveland, and one of the mutuals invited me to go out and play some billiards. So I go out and she's like, I feel like you might know, but maybe it's not any of my business, but I just want to make sure that you know that he has herpes. And I was like, So I went, got tested, I'm fine and stuff. But it was just like, I literally said, like, it's controllable. It's not going to be a no from me. Like, there's so much stigma around sexually transmitted infections and diseases. So it's just like, I understand that. I just want to make sure that, like, if you have an outbreak, that we don't do anything and that we wear a condom. Like, I just wanted to make sure we're both safe. Still couldn't tell me. Yeah, so that's why I let go of the best dick I've ever had. But yeah,
attached to a dick though, by the sounds of
it. Yeah, attached to a dick and not the fun kind. But yeah, I mean, learning experiences. I learned a lot from that one. That I just, you can bring it up, make sure you specify, but still don't trust anybody. And it's important to get regularly screened, especially if you're sexually active. If you're gonna be like, by all means, be a hoe, just hoe responsibly.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, get tested, keep yourself hydrated, pee after sex. Most important thing you can do for yourself is to pee after sex.
I have suffered so terribly over the years from urinary tract infections that have even become kidney infections before.
And some guys think that they're exempt from it, but they're not. They're less likely to get it, but they can still get UTIs from it. So everybody, pee after sex.
Yeah, it's healthy.
Penis havers and vagina havers, please.
Yeah. So. And anyone with a urinary tract, just pee.
Just pee. Yeah, because there's nullifications. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
but if you get nullification, then I don't know. I have actually never looked too far into that, so I don't know what kinds of surgeries there are for nullification. But
I'm also thinking of intersex people though, because
yes, as well. Mm-hmm.
Many configurations are available.
Very, very many. So, yep.
Yeah. You
have a urinary tract, pee after sex.
Yeah, totally. It's funny. No, wait, I'm not going to tell that story. It's too negative. What next, Jordan? What should we talk about?
Maybe get a little bit more serious and actually talk about how different kinds of trans people can have sex.
Okay,
and
cool.
the options available. Because I mean, there's so many configurations, there's so many identities and expressions.
Yeah.
It all comes down to exactly to the pair. If they're a top, if they're a bottom, what they like, what they don't like, what you can't touch. Everybody is different. There are some people that are more towards the expression and the identity I have, that you are not allowed anywhere near the vagina. But with me, I'm like, go for it. So it's you always need to have communication with a trans partner. No matter how many times you've had sex with said partner is important before every time you get intimate, because things can change. Dysphoria can be fluid, everything can be fluid, so you just want to make sure that you're having these conversations every single time. Like, you let me touch this before, can I still touch you? Do you like this? What do you want me to stay away from? What kind of descriptors do you want me to use? Especially if you like a lot of vocal sex, you want to make sure you're not using like feminine terms for somebody who wants masculine, and vice versa. And then you get down to actually having sex, the fun part, and so you obviously have a lot of options when it comes to that. If you've ever walked into an adult store, there are a lot of options and ways to have sex, and sex isn't always penetration. That's important to remember. You can have sex without penetration. If somebody is not into penetration, do not force them. That is not cool. But if they are, and you are not equipped, and they want something more than well-endowed lesbian fingers, there's dildos and strap-ons. You can get them in all sorts of shapes, sizes. They can vibrate. They can light up. There's so many different options. I always like to tell people that, yeah, I've got a big dick. It's called pick a size. So, yeah, you can obviously have a wide array of things you can use, and tools and toys. Of course, there's also your fingers, or more if that's what you're into. No judgment here. But there's so many different ways that you can have sex with a trans person, that, because especially in a cis heteronormative way, is people just think that penetration is the only way. But the clitoris has so many nerves in it, and that's on the outside, people. So
yeah, totally. And I remember, like, someone said, like, when I think it was with my first or second girlfriend, and someone was like, how do you have sex? And I was like, basically, it's horny, and then at the end everyone's happy. That's it. It doesn't really matter between point A and point B how you get there. If everyone's happy and it's consensual and everyone's like had a good time, that's it. Like, why does that? And they were like, oh, but if there's no penis involved or nothing similar, because I was like, a lot of the time we're just using what we've got. And I was just like, but it's, sex is not a penis show. Okay,
it's not.
Sex is about two people having a good time together, and you don't need, no one's trying to emulate necessarily cis heteronormative sex. You're not trying to do it the way somebody else does it. You're not trying to copy anything or anyone. The whole point is that you're having that connection with somebody else, or maybe more than one person, whatever, relationship styles or things that you're into. And I think it's just so odd to me that people think of sex as this just very standard thing, and there's just like one way of doing it. And I think, thank God I'm queer. Like, if I was, subjected to a lifetime of this really monotonous, like, like, just penis and vagina over and over again, I'd just be like, Jesus Christ. Like, is that all the imagination that you've got? Like, I think about, if you've got a dog, right, and you take it for a walk, are you really, like, for its entire life, are you going to take it on the same walk twice a day for the rest of its natural life? Because if so, I feel fucking sorry for the dog, okay? And I feel sorry for the person that gets the same sex over and over again forever, when they may enjoy a little bit of variety. I mean, if people are happy, then great, then that's fine. But I'm alarmed at the number of people for whom it's very standard routine and unimaginative. And, you know, I'm not talking about like whipping anybody or like getting out strange kitchen utensils, but
why did my brain go straight to a whisk? I would be horrified if it's like, you ready, baby? Pulled up a whisk, and I'd be like, I'm leaving. You will not scramble these eggs today. I wanted them fertilized, not scrambled.
Oh, amazing.
I need to get laid.
Everything's starting to look good, eh, Jordan?
It's...
I'm not far behind you. I haven't had sex since November.
For those that aren't watching one that has the visual there with you, I did just hold up a remote and look at it. It's got to press all the right buttons. It's funny
though, George, are you grey sexual? Do you want to talk about that a minute?
Yeah, I've kind of touched on it before. In speaking about why I have such a weird relationship with sex, but yeah, like I can look at people and be like, oh yeah, hot, totally get smashed, but I don't actually want to smash them. It's just like my way of saying like they're an attractive person. It takes quite a bit for me to actually, just like how you said, Harris, that it takes some time for you to build this connection, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, yeah, I totally want to have this intimate relationship. And so that's kind of how it is with me. I go up and down through the week as I take my testosterone shot, but I'll be horny, but I don't want to have sex. I want to have the release, but I don't want to have sex, which is why I've got a lot of tools to help me masturbate. So that's usually like my sex life is me just fucking myself at this point. But in the last year, there's, I think, probably 2 people I've met that I've actually wanted to have sex with. That haven't worked out for various reasons. But yeah, so it's kind of, it just takes me a lot to build up to it. And especially in the gay culture, and I feel like this is probably, just because of what I've seen on social media and stuff, this is probably a universal thing, but especially in a repressed state like Utah, is the gay culture is very much centered around sex, and a lot of it. And so when I go in and I'm like, I want to take it slow, go on a couple of dates, maybe make out a little bit, and then I'll be like, oh, now I want to touch your dick, or now I want to get intimate with you, when they want to go right off the bat, and then they'll lose interest very quickly. So that just kind of is like, I'm kind of like a slow burn into being intimate with people. But once I get to the point where I want to be intimate with someone, I could probably like multiple times a day, every day of the week. Like, yeah. So it's like I go from being very on the scale of sexuality, being very disinterested in sex, to being almost hypersexual, but only for that one person.
Yes.
So I tried to do hookup culture, couldn't do it. I tried for a year, up before running into terrible, disappointing bad book. But yeah, so, and I just can't get into it. I don't like hookups. I don't like one-offs. I can't ever enjoy myself really when I get into it. That's always disappointing sex for me. But then at the same time, like in short relationships, ones that don't last very long because you find out fairly quickly that you're not compatible, even then, if I have sex before I feel like I'm ready to have sex, I'm not into it. It's not enjoyable for me. It doesn't matter if they do all the things I like or it's the type of like dom sub relationship I'm into. I'm not into it. I don't find any joy from it. And so,
do you feel like I always feel like it's like being at the doctor's and they're just having a rummage.
I got my legs up. They've got that iron crocodile of death in there. I hate that thing so much. Like, although I'm pretty okay with down there, I kind of do want to get a vaginectomy just so that I don't have to deal with that ever again. But oh yeah, that was another thing I wanted to bring up when I had my little episode. Is genitals and the way people perceive people and the effect that has on trans youth, because I didn't have bottom dysphoria until I was in my late teens. And it happened because I realized that the only reason people weren't treating me the way I wanted to be treated, the way I felt, the way who I am, is because I didn't have a penis. And so I felt like I would get the respect of people and be able to do all of the things that I am, I would need a penis for it. So although I can be touched there, I have no issues generally with it. I have dysphoria that comes and goes with bottom dysphoria because of that. And that's why it's so important to disconnect genitals from identity. Not just as an intersex person, but as a trans person and as a human. Like, we need to stop equating those things. Along with people being more like growing up in more accepting homes, experiencing less dysphoria, that's one of the things that could help with, is because that was like more of an onset for me, and I never had problems with it. Like, I didn't really have too many. I did start having problems with my chest when I hit puberty, but other than that, like, I felt no reason why I shouldn't be included where I wanted to be included. And then when it sunk in that it's because I didn't have a penis and I was expected to act and behave a certain way, I was like, well, if I had a penis, then I wouldn't have to do all of these things. But also, I don't have $80,000.
If you had $80,000, do you think you would?
Yeah, I think I would. Although, like I said, I am comfortable with it. There are certain things I want to experience, and honestly, like, aside from actually having sex, I'm not attached to it. I think they're kind of gross sometimes. I'm super grossed out by discharge. I know it's totally natural and it's normal and it's how I keep myself clean and stuff like that, but it will keep me up at night. I hate it that much. So it would be more of like a comfort thing than more of like that I hate what I have. But yeah, if I had the money, then I would probably go forward with it.
So
I'd be getting I wouldn't be getting a phallo. I'd be getting a metoimplasty.
Tell us what that is.
So the difference is the phallo is like a full construction of a fake penis, basically. And then the one I want to is, I obviously am not going to have like a full size or anything like that. But when I mentioned in an early episode when I talked about how I had my surprise growth.
Yeah.
And I mentioned that this was good because the type of surgery I want relies on that. And basically what they do is they go in and they kind of snip it. And then it kind of folds itself out. And depending on how big you are now, you can actually have penetrative sex with it. Cool. And so it has a lot less risk associated with it than the phallo. I wouldn't need any skin grafts. I could get a natural boner, stuff like that. Obviously, I won't be able to pee out. Well, you could. They actually could do, because of how it's done, you won't be able to have penetrative sex after anyways. But you can have the vaginectomy, and then they can change so that they can make your urethra go up through your clit. So then it's a micro penis. That's, yeah. So,
cool.
So that it would be the surgery that I would want to get if I had the money for it. I feel like what if they get better statistics with a phalloplasty, or I mean, they even just had a successful penis transplant. So I feel like I would rather wait and see what happens in 10 to 15 years with gender affirming surgery. But
yeah,
I also want to be able to helicopter. Like, let's get my priorities real here. I want to be able to helicopter.
I think it's that thing, isn't it? Because so often there's that really tired phrase that I'm very patient with people when they're learning and they want to ask questions, but the phrase I hear all the time that I really feel that should be left to die in peace is the born in the wrong body thing. Because obviously, of course, for some people that is the case, and that's totally valid. But that is not the definition of being trans. Yeah, it's not the definition of being trans. And there's that idea, isn't there, that like it must be so awful. You must be suffering. You must hate everything about yourself, or like your body you feel betrayed. And I'm like, no, it's like sometimes it's just that what you've got is okay. Maybe you're not massively distressed, but maybe something is just going to be 1,000 times better. And people always assume that like so like my hormonal cycle and things like that, and they're like, are you okay with that? And I'm like, yeah, of course. Like, why wouldn't I be? Like, do I seem distressed to you? But no, I just but I'm fine. And they're like, oh, if you ever wanted children, would you ever have your own kid? And I was like, yeah, well, why not? I mean, if you've got the equipment, it's much cheaper to do a DIY, rather than go and find volunteers.
Yeah, I've got one of those. He's 7 years old, the pain in my ass, but I love him. But yeah, and so that's why I brought up earlier, like when we started talking about sex and stuff like that and how to have it was to communicate, because everybody's different. Just everybody's different and has different views of their own body and are okay with certain parts of their body. There's some people that they will never ever ever take their shirt off in bed, both cis and trans, like, or non-binary. Like, there's people that just never will. And so you just have to communicate. You just have to make sure that you understand that specific partner. And again, like how I said, having the conversation once isn't enough. You need to have it every time. Because for me, 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna be like, yeah, touch whatever, I'm fine with it. But then that one time, I'm gonna be like, do not touch the vagina. Like, don't even look at it. But so it's like it changes, and it's important just to be vocal about it, both as a trans person and then as the person being with the trans person. Even if you're trans yourself, you've always got to make sure you're having that conversation.
I think that's the uncomfortable part, though, isn't it? Because once we start talking about it, we realize that actually we all need to be having this very frank communication, and actually we're all brought up to not necessarily have that. So really we're requiring people to be vulnerable and to have open conversations, and for it to be awkward, and it's not necessarily very sexy.
It's not, but it'll make the sex much better for both of you.
Definitely. It's funny, actually, like, oh, sorry.
Unless you're one of those people that doesn't like your partner having fun, and in that case, you deserve to go jump in a hole.
Yeah, fuck off, you wanker. Yeah, so I think it was the year that I turned 30, a couple of years ago.
Oh, I forgot you're old.
Yeah, I've got grey pubes. Just a few.
Just the 3 in the corner.
I found them, and I've got a couple of like grey eyebrow hairs, which I think it's distinguished. But then I found my first few grey pubes. I was like, that's fucking taking it too far, man. I'm not keen on that.
I have pure white nose hairs.
Nice. I expect a
Yeah, and I've
picture
got.
of the next one that you find.
I'm not sure if it's blonde or white, but I've got some in my beard too. I have no
Nice.
idea what's going on in my hair because I don't leave it alone long enough to actually even know what my natural hair color is at this point.
But yeah, so a couple of years ago, I dated. I had a partner who was trans feminine, and they were pre-op, pre-estrogen, pre-progesterone. You know, like pre-everything. And I think they were still very much. I think our relationship was the first one where they'd got to be themselves and like
Still trying to
wear
figure everything out.
dresses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, wear dresses, and I did their makeup once. It was really lovely, and I painted their nails and helped them pick out like clothes and jewelry, and they really enjoyed it. It was so nice to like see them um, enjoy their self-expression and to be with somebody who like really saw them, and it was like really magical. But because it was like very early on in their own journey of like coming out and stuff, the first time we ended up in bed together, I was a bit like, they were very shy and like didn't want to communicate too much. So I was kind of like just sort of doing like tiny touches here or there and just looking at their face and being like, do you
Just
like that?
watching
And
the
they weren't,
reaction.
yeah, they weren't even really sure. And sometimes I'd be like, you know, is this okay? And they'd be like, yes. And I was like, that doesn't sound like a big yes.
Yeah.
And then they'd be like, yeah. And then like suddenly they were like, okay, we have to stop now. And I was like, okay. And it was so like, it was frustrating, but it was really, but eventually it did build into something a bit more fun for the both of us.
Uh-huh.
But it was such a learning thing. And actually, it was, I realized it was the first time I'd ever been with somebody who really understood that I had dysphoria to some extent
Mm-hmm.
and would ask me. And I actually went through this phase where I was a bit like, oh my God, am I okay with any of this? And I started to like doubt all the things that I was used to. Um, and sometimes I was like, I don't know if I'm just uncomfortable because I'm thinking about it again, or if I'm actually dysphoric. Um, and it was really weird. And I came out of all of that. It didn't last very long. Um, but it ended up, it was interesting. Our sex, so even though they still had their penis and everything, our sex ended up being much more like I guess you'd say like lesbian sex. And I think it was our fourth date. We were in a sex shop, uh, buying. So yeah, I think we bought a strap on for them, and uh, I really enjoyed it actually because I mean, normally I'm like you, Jordan, like pretty much a pillow princess, and the second that anyone's touching me, like I can't string two words together. I'm you know a limp noodle. I'm used, and you know when you're over 6 feet tall, being a limp noodle, you just there's no way. You know you need a crane or a tractor to come in and move me. But with this partner, I don't know. I think it's because they had that like really feminine side, and but also we had quite a strong intellectual and mental bond as well. That by the time that I think it brought out a little bit of like dominance in me as well. And I've used strap-ons on other partners before, but this one was particularly was like I've never been so dominant as I was with them, and I was amazed at like the power, the pure power. It was like it was really nice, and I felt like I got to have a glimpse into what it's like to be like the dominant partner and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, oh wow, this is really interesting and like really enjoyable. It's not something that I would normally think about or something, it's not like a big part of my kind of sexual identity. But I did find it really fascinating and like just a really quite special experience. And I think as well, being with another trans person, I think whatever minority you may or may not belong to, or any demographic, I guess, if there's something that you experience that's specific to you, you have that silent knowing or that shared like understanding, if you know what I mean. And I think to have that in a sexual situation with another trans person that you have a really good bond with, I think was like, there was just something about it that was just so special and really exciting. And I mean, that's not to pitch it as like the ideal or any kind of gold standard, or to say that it's better than anything else. But I definitely, yeah, it was a very safe place to be, actually, and it was a really, really nice thing to experience with somebody who gets it. That there was no judgment, there was no gendering. We both understood that each other's physical representations were purely that, and that actually we were connecting with each other like as human beings. And I think kudos to everybody, like ally or not, who are doing the work to become more confident and well versed in all of these things. But I think there was a little bit of relief in being with somebody else who also got it, and I didn't have to really explain anything to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Nice.
That was beautiful.
Oh, thanks, Jordan. I actually wrote, do you know what? I wrote a piece. It was my short erotic story, and it was based on that relationship. I have to put it up again somewhere. In fact, if anybody wants a copy of it, it's been reviewed by my writing buddies. Maybe I'll put it up. In fact, I will send out a link to it in the next week or so on the mailing list. So if you're not on the mailing list and you want a copy of my sexy story, it's been well received so far. Sign up to the mailing list at mxharrishill.com/transection. There's a green box. You only have to put your name and your email in it, and that's it. It'll take you 10 seconds. Go do it. I'll send you some sexy stories. You don't have to open it. It'll just be a link. I'm not going to literally, you're not going to have like...
You're not going to get slapped in the face with a dick.
Yeah. Exactly. Oh, but yeah,
it'll be really... a dick in a box. You can open it if you want.
Yeah, the link will be there. You don't have to click on it. But yeah, if you want the sexy story, I'll send it to you. I'm quite proud of that one. All of my writing buddies are cis. One of them's gay, one of them's bi, but everybody else is pretty straight laced. And they listened to it and they were like, I read it out to them. They were like, "Oh, that's lovely." In fact, I'll do that as well. I'll do an audio. I'll read it out for you. I'll do a little video as well, so you can listen to it. Jordan, you're so tired.
I just made a mistake. Made a big mistake. I just stretched for the first time since I put the tape on, and I think I ripped out some hairs. But just hairs.
Oh.
I covered my nipples. I just didn't think about the hair. I should have shaved first. It's fine.
Is it going to be like 40-year-old virgin when you're going to have like patches of chest hair missing?
Thankfully, no. I got this. Let me grab it. It comes with like this cool little oil with a little nozzle tip that you rub into it, and then it rubs all the adhesive off.
Right. So for those of you who don't know what Jordan's talking about, Jordan has their chest binder is looking a bit worse for wear. So Jordan's bought some.
Yeah, I've got two tape. Of them. I order from Shapeshifters, which I highly recommend, especially if you're someone with tactile issues like myself. I like GC2B. I just cannot wear their binders because of texture problems. So I wear Shapeshifter. They, though, however, have been closed for several months as they have been making masks. And so my binders are really sad. So I got trans tape, which is kind of like a semi-stretchy, not like KT tape, but semi-stretchy little tape that you can use. This is the biggest size they have. I am a very large person up there. So I got these, and it's actually working quite well. So it's the same rolls as binders. not too tight. Make sure you can breathe. You should be able to move freely without pain. But then, of course, it's adhesive. So, and the longer it stays on your body, the stronger it's attached to your body. And I actually knew this trick because I have a child. But you use an oil. You can use baby oil. This is, I think, a sunflower seed oil is the one I got from them. I got two big. What's that sound again? I got two huge rolls of the big tape, and it came with a balm to help if there is any sores that I get, and then it came with that giant thing of oil. But when I had my kid and he would get his vaccinations and stuff, they would tell you, they put the Band-Aid on and they get the Band-Aid off is that you take baby oil and rub it on and then it comes right off. And so I knew that trick. That's how I've used it to take off my injection sites and stuff like that. But I taped today. I just came in this morning, so I taped today. And I just stretched. And I kind of waxed myself a little bit there for a second. But I was smart about it, and I did follow the instructions. And you don't want to put the adhesive directly on your nipples. As much as I hate them, I don't hate them like that. So you get like a little folded up pieces of toilet paper and then put a piece of tape over it. And then you tape yourself. But it's nice though. I'm liking the look a lot better just because with binders you usually get like kind of a flat look. And when you're a bigger guy like myself, it looks kind of funny. So yeah. I like it this because now my shirt is kind of falling naturally into what I guess is my cleavage, but because it's pulled apart. But so I look more like a chunky guy, and it's drawing a lot less attention. So I like it. I like it a lot so far.
Thank you for joining us on this absolutely mental episode. We hope you've enjoyed it. It's been very informative. As we mentioned before, if you have any questions left, message us. We'll be very happy to answer them, and it will be lots of fun. So until our next episode, build bridges and have fun. Goodbye from me.
And make sure you make every dick joke you can. We'll see you guys on the next podcast.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.